On June 23, 1940, Adolf Hitler stood triumphantly at the Trocadero in Paris, the Eiffel Tower looming like a silent sentinel in the soft glow of dawn. For 3 hours, he toured the vanquished city in near silence, his trusted architect, Albert Speer, trailing beside him, sketching visions for a rebuilt Berlin inspired by this fallen jewel. The Führer's features softened into something akin to serene satisfaction. In just 6 weeks, his Wehrmacht had achieved what the Kaiser's armies could not in 4 grueling years of World War I. France lay prostrate, its vaunted defenses shattered. The British Expeditionary Force had been hurled into the churning waters at Dunkirk, leaving behind mountains of equipment on blood-soaked beaches. To Hitler and his generals, the Western Front was decisively won, or so it seemed. That same morning in Berlin, euphoria gripped the Wehrmacht High Command. General Franz Halder, chief of the Army General Staff, scribbled in his diary that Britain's plight was utterly hopeless. General Alfred Jodl, head of operations, eagerly drafted proclamations of victory. The burning question among the German brass was not if Britain would capitulate, but when. Most pegged it at 3 weeks, the more buoyant souls whispered mere days. The reasoning appeared ironclad: Britain stood isolated, her army in tatters, stripped of tanks, guns, and morale. Across the narrow channel, the Wehrmacht had massed a colossus unseen in European history: 3 million troops, thousands of panzers, and the Luftwaffe, which had already clawed every rival sky into submission. What madness could compel Britain to press on? Even Hitler, ever the strategist, puzzled over this British intransigence. 2 days later, on June 25, he convened his commanders at his forward headquarters in Brûlé-de-Pêche, a sleepy Belgian hamlet. The talk swirled not around conquest, but accommodation, how to graciously accept London's inevitable bow. Hitler envisioned magnanimous terms: Britain could retain her far-flung empire, provided she meekly ceded Europe's reins to the Reich. This was no bargaining ploy, it was prophecy, rooted in what he deemed self-evident truth. Admiral Erich Raeder, commander-in-chief of the Kriegsmarine, observed the proceedings with the quiet gravitas of a World War I survivor. At 64, he outaged most of Hitler's inner sanctum and carried the scars of Britain's naval supremacy etched in memory. When the Führer probed the feasibility of invasion as a last resort, Raeder's reply was temperate yet unyielding. The Royal Navy dwarfed the Kriegsmarine in every metric: dreadnoughts, carriers, cruisers. Any crossing demanded flawless air dominance, balmy seas, and a miracle's worth of fortune. He stopped short of declaring it impossible, but his inflection screamed near suicidal folly. Hitler dismissed the warning with a flourish. No invasion loomed, he averred, for none would be required. Britain, pragmatic as ever, would yield to inexorable logic. Yet in fog-shrouded London, a different script unfolded. Winston Churchill, Prime Minister for scarcely 6 weeks, had forged his tenure not in capitulation's shadow, but in the forge of unyielding resolve. On June 18, he had thundered to the House of Commons: "The Battle of France is over. I expect the Battle of Britain is about to begin." He urged his countrymen to steel themselves for sacrifice, proclaiming, "Let us therefore brace ourselves to our duties, and so bear ourselves that, if the British Empire and its Commonwealth last for 1,000 years, men will still say, this was their finest hour." The words ignited a national firestorm of defiance, a clarion call that mystified Berlin. German analysts dissected the oratory as hollow bravado, a desperate veil for impending surrender. Their spies painted a portrait of crumbling morale, riven cabinets, and a teetering Churchill. These dispatches fed the High Command's complacency, and they were catastrophically adrift. The first fissures in German certainty cracked open in early July. Hitler dispatched peace overtures via neutral Sweden and Switzerland, subtle hints of equitable deals for those willing to face facts. Britain's retort? A resounding void. Not the hush of deliberation, but the chill disdain of utter dismissal. These propositions weren't haggled, they were spurned for the audacity of their existence. On July 16, Hitler issued Directive No. 16, elevating invasion from whisper to writ. As England, in spite of her hopeless military situation, still shows no signs of willingness to come to terms, it opened, I have decided to prepare, and, if necessary, to carry out a landing operation against her. Christened Operation Sea Lion, the edict pulsed with ambivalence, if necessary. It was a prod-to-prod British pragmatism, not a blueprint for Armageddon. Hitler clung to faith in surrender, this was merely leverage to accelerate it. As planners delved deeper, Sea Lion's enormity dawned like a gathering storm. Halder's staff crunched the figures. The first surge demanded 260,000 troops ashore, backed by 30,000 vehicles and 60,000 horses, ferried in relentless waves across roiling waters. Each convoy would dangle like bait before the Royal Navy's jaws, steaming unchecked from Scapa Flow to eviscerate the lumbering invasion barges. Raeder laid bare these perils to Hitler on July 21. His verdict had soured further. The Kriegsmarine commanded not a ripple against Britain's armada. No capital ships, scant cruisers, a smattering of destroyers, versus over 50 British destroyers prowling the Channel, shadowed by battleships. Air power alone could redress the imbalance, Raeder conceded, but only if the Luftwaffe forged an unbreachable dome of supremacy, sustained not for hours, but weeks or months. Hermann Göring, Reichsmarschall of the Luftwaffe, brimmed with swagger at 47, his ego as bloated as his frame. His eagles had pulverized Poland's wings in days, evicted the French from the firmament, and hounded the RAF from continental soil. He vowed to Hitler, the RAF would crumble in 4 days, 4 weeks, tops. On July 19, Hitler essayed one final olive branch, haranguing the Reichstag in Berlin, his voice crackling over Europe's airwaves. He catalogued triumphs, Britain's abyss, his aversion to needless carnage. In this hour, I feel it my duty before my own conscience to appeal once more to reason and common sense in Great Britain, he intoned. I consider myself in a position to make this appeal, since I am not the vanquished begging favors, but the victor speaking in the name of reason. I see no reason why this war must go on. Broadcast as a laurel from the pinnacle, it was Hitler's earnest Hail Mary, a conviction that logic would prevail. 3 days hence, Lord Halifax, British Foreign Secretary, fired back via BBC ether, rejection, total and withering. Britain would parley with Nazis never, not in defeat, not in truce, not till the Reich lay in ruins. Hitler's inner circle chronicled his shock as visceral, a thunderbolt of incomprehension. Germany had triumphed, the script decreed closure. Why this quixotic spasm? Through late July and early August, the fray morphed from shadowboxing to inferno. Luftwaffe sorties harried Channel convoys, probing RAF metal. German airmen recoiled at the riposte, Spitfires and Hurricanes swarmed in profusion, feral and unrelenting. British flyers betrayed no fracture in spirit, worse, they anticipated raids with eerie prescience. The invaders grasped it dimly, but Britain's radar lattice and seamless command web bestowed fighter command an oracle's edge. Over home turf, the aerial duel felt alien, raw, intimate, unforgiving. On August 1, Directive No. 17 unleashed the Luftwaffe to overcome the English Air Force with all means at its disposal, and as soon as possible. The escalated onslaught kicked off in early August, laser-focused, eradicate the RAF, crown the skies for Sea Lion. Mid-September loomed as the invasion's razor-edge deadline, autumn's gales would seal the Channel in ice and fury. Göring dubbed the salvo's dawn Adler Tag, Eagle Day, convening his Flottenführers to decree apocalypse, tidal raids to swamp defenses, raze fields, throttle factories, seize the heavens in a blitz. Eagle Day, slotted for August 13, dissolved into farce. Gales snarled schedules, garbled orders sowed anarchy. Some squadrons struck, others idled. The RAF, unbowed, countered with venom. German attrition mounted, yet Göring's hubris held, mere overture. Waves of bombers, shepherded by fighters, thundered across the strait to pummel southern aerodromes. The clashes were titanic, visceral, dogfights stitching the horizon in tracer fire and smoke. Luftwaffe crews reeled from the RAF's tenacity, intelligence chorused daily that reserves teetered on exhaustion, yet squadrons materialized, unyielding. In Berlin, Halder's journal soured. August 14, the Führer is most anxious to know why Britain will not make peace. August 15, the English are proving tough and unwavering. Riddles proliferated, why no RAF implosion? Whence these phantom squadrons? How their uncanny interdictions? Blind to the truth, Germany underestimated Britain's forge, factories birthing 400+ fighters monthly, double the spies' tallies. Each dawn, the Luftwaffe braced for frailty, each dusk, the foe endured, resilient as granite. By late August, fighter command strained, pilots gaunt with fatigue, runways cratered, but the chain held taut. The Luftwaffe hemorrhaged veterans irreplaceable, its bombers bleeding crews, its Bf-109s leashed by fuel for scant patrols air retreat. Raeder confronted Hitler anew on August 30, his alarms amplified. Air ascendancy, even if grasped, left the Royal Navy's Leviathans unchallenged. Kriegsmarine escorts couldn't shield barges, flimsy riverine tubs, prey to swells or salvos, from Scappa's wrath. Hitler recoiled, unhearing. Invasion forged ahead, Britain must bend, by suasion or steel. September scorched with fury's zenith. On the 7th, the Luftwaffe pivoted, colossal daylight assaults on London, a cocktail of calculus and spite. Göring sought to pulverize resolve, bleed reserves. Hitler craved reprisal for RAF accidents that had scarred the Reich's hearth. The Blitz ignited with 348 bombers gutting docks and East End warrens. Flames clawed the night, claiming hundreds of souls in rubble and ash. Yet morale? Unscathed, in fact, steeled. Diverting from airfields gifted the RAF respite to mend. Unescorted bombers fell like autumn leaves to pursuing Spitfires, losses spiraling to abyss. September 15 crowned the carnage. Two prodigious thrusts on the capital hurled nearly the Luftwaffe's all, bombers blanketing the sun, fighters snarling guard. Fighter command surged in kind, a maelstrom from Thames to Solent, dawn to gloaming. At twilight's toll, 56 German wrecks smoldered. The RAF mourned 29. Beyond arithmetic, the RAF's sinews flexed unbroken, parrying the Reich's utmost. The fable of Luftwaffe invincibility splintered like glass. By September 17, Hitler summoned his warlords. Sea Lion teetered on the precipice, tides and tempests conspiring against delay. Raeder led with somberness, no aerial throne, naval hegemony intact, gales brewing. To cross now? An act of desperation, he murmured. Göring, bruised by shortfall, deflected, underestimations of numbers, climbs, radar. Weeks more, he pleaded, and victory crowned. Jodl etched the inexorable, launch imminently, or languish till 1941's thaw, nights lengthened, seas soured, moons waned. The Führer, who had preened in Paris embrace scarce 3 months prior, confronted a phantom fork, gamble on a commander's nightmare, or shelve and confess impotence. He chose stasis. Sea Lion deferred until spring, when zephyrs might favor. All present divined the subtext, defeat. Not the war's end, yet, but this crucible of spirits. Britain had stared down the bluff and held. The verdict lingered in secrecy days, but tremors convulsed the high command. For the first time, the Wehrmacht had essayed and faltered. Invincibility's halo dimmed. Halder's pages turned pensive, how? How had this lone isle, bereft and beleaguered, endured? The crux, elusive to Teutonic calculus, was primal. Britain chose endurance. Churchill spurned the white flag. Pilots soared till wings failed. Workers hammered squadrons from scrap. Citizens trudged through blitz and blackout, unbowed. Germany's gambit hinged on a fallacy, that foes HEW to reason, fold at the ledger's close. Britain shredded the premise. She fought, not for triumph's gleam, but surrender's revulsion. The Luftwaffe's nocturnal hammerfall persisted through winter's vice into 1941's chill, the Blitz reaping 40,000 civilian lives, scarring London, Coventry, Birmingham in fire and ruin. Yet spirits? Unquenched. No Neil, no parley. Sea Lion staggered to October postponement, then silent interment by 1941's dawn, as Hitler pivoted to Soviet shadows. Barges scattered to scrap, legions marched east. The Isle's subjugation dissolved to footnotes and phantoms. For Hitler, the scar suppurated. Germany had ravaged Europe, toppled thrones, wielded might Midas-like, yet Britain demurred the epilogue. She flouted the narrative, the decorum of defeat. In December 1941, amid global conflagration, Barbarossa's maw, Pearl Harbor's thunder, Churchill journeyed to Ottawa, fresh from Washington's pact with Roosevelt. Addressing Parliament, he evoked June's nadir, France's eclipse, Britain's solitariness. A French general's sneer echoed, "In 3 weeks, England will have her neck wrung like a chicken." Churchill savored the hush, then quipped with impish glee, "Some chicken." Laughter cascaded. "Some neck," he capped, beaming. Applause thundered, but the jest veiled profundity. Britain outlasted 1940 not by arms preponderance or stratagem's cunning, but raw, bone-deep obstinacy, a refusal to yield when yielding whispered wisdom. The German pantheon, for all its blitzkrieg brilliance and phalanxes of steel, fathomed it not. They reckoned in vectors of force, not vortices of soul, in rationed self-preservation, not the primal roar against the void. They overlooked that realms, like souls, sometimes wage war not for laurels, but lest capitulation corrode the marrow. September 17, 1940, etched more than deferral, a tactical stutter, a pivot's pang. It crested Nazism's tide, the Wehrmacht's zenith, where juggernaut met monolith. Not Britain's brawn prevailed, she lacked it, nor Germany's frailty exposed, it endured. But will's alchemy, resolve as rampart, defiance as doctrine. Britain would not fracture. For the High Command, that September unveiled heresy, grit could eclipse guns, tenacity trump tactics. Foes might scorn intimidation, nations unearth sinews beyond ledger's ken. Berlin's parades evaporated, invasion's fanfare silenced, the West's swift coda aborted. Instead, Armageddon sprawled 5 blood-soaked years, devouring epochs in shadow. Yet on that 17th, as Hitler yielded to hiatus, the full tempest eluded them. Only this, axioms crumbled, foes flouted fate. Britain would not bargain. Would not relent. Would not cease. And therein lay the fulcrum, the hinge of history. The Wehrmacht had subjugated continents in Blitz's blur, felled legions, enthroned terror. But one people's adamantine no eluded conquest. Some chicken, indeed. Some neck.